All right, guys. So we'll go ahead and get started. People can kind of jump in mid-conversation. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you all right.
5 over 5.
Perfect. So just wanted to take a moment and introduce people. I know some of you have been here before. Some of you have not. So my name's Josh. I'm out of Arizona, and I go by Cujo. We got also on the core team, we've got Dan, who is out of, Minnesota, right?
Yep, that's right.
All right. Yeah, I got it right. And then also we've got our president on tonight, Dave, who is out of New York. And just so you're aware, I'm the vice president of the FPVFC. So if you have questions, Dan, myself, or Dave are happy to answer them at any time. So just wanted to take a minute and introduce everybody. So tonight, and keep in mind that this is kind of a brainstorming session, and I understand there's some questions about not only regulations in the United States, but in other countries as well. So, and people in those other countries are looking for support. And, while currently the FPVFC is based in the U.S., is focused on dealing with the FAA in the United States. Down the road, or maybe sooner, there might be an option to kind of expand that out. And I just kind of want to discuss that and get your guys' take on some of that. So now amongst the team, there is a desire to help people in other countries with their regulations. However, right now our team is very small, and we've got quite the workload already. So just wanted to kind of get a feeling. What are your guys' thoughts on kind of, for lack of a better term, going international?
Well, first of all, I would like to know how could I help out on the matter?
Okay, so there's lots of different things. First up, in terms of helping out, we've got projects going on here and there. It kind of depends on what your skills are and how we can kind of best fit you. I mean, right now, some of our biggest opportunities are probably with social media, and pushing the message out that way. And somebody who is proficient in basically being a social media manager would be definitely useful, because we could always use help on that front. That's one of our biggest areas. Beyond that, it's spreading the word and getting people committed. So we just had Dave just had the interview with Joshua Bardwell last week, and we saw an explosion in memberships and people interested in the FPVFC and our message and what we're doing here. And it's stuff like that that really helps solidify what we're doing and pull the community together.
Yeah, Tiger Flyer, I know you make videos, so I haven't noticed if you've made any where you've mentioned the FPV Freedom Coalition, but it'd be a great opportunity to plug it in there at the beginning or end once in a while.
Yeah, I really like to keep my videos about one topic. I'll try doing it pretty soon.
I know last time we were talking, Bruce Simpson mentioned if a lot of people just had a really quick bumper at the beginning or end of their videos where they did some sort of FPV Freedom Coalition tagline, that would help get the word out there.
Yeah, I'm actually trying something recently. Having something sort of like the UAV Futures V challenge thing that they had earlier. I'm trying to do something that just fit in a different way. But yeah,
Okay.
I'd be happy to just advertise a bit about it for sure.
And I'd say we're also very open to ideas. If anybody here can think of something we're not doing and can offer a way to do it, we'd be all ears.
Absolutely.
And we're also looking for someone with accounting or bookkeeping skills, as also an attorney. And we would promise not to tax, if you'll forgive the pun, either of them with too much work or effort, but would love another set of eyes before we work through the accountant we have engaged or the law firm we have engaged.
Absolutely. So going back on topic, so what's the, let's go back to what's the thought about going international? Where do you think, we could do the most good in relation to that?
I mean, I think it's a wonderful idea. It's just that's a whole lot bigger scale, and so that's where a lot of the trouble comes in with it.
Absolutely. So, and forgive me, but I'm not, I'm hyper focused on what's going on in the United States, obviously. So, what countries around the world would benefit from, some extra assistance, or, we were discussing, or some of our members were discussing the other day, like chapters and whatnot. So, I know Canada has some very strong regulations going on. Beyond them, who else?
That's the other thing that would be helpful, is get someone, from each to kind of fill in what we don't know about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that we're not just going off of interpretation from a third party view. We have someone that's in it and can kind of give a first person view of what's going on.
Right.
It would be really nice if we had people from other countries join these meetings just to give us that other perspective.
Well, actually, I think this is largely the first, but there are other countries that are affected. I met a friend in India recently. He was talking about how the stuff that he has to deal with. I could probably get him to just come over here at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be nice. It's a tough one for India. It's depending on what time zone. It's if I remember right from New York, it's a 12 or 11 and a half hour time difference. But that would still, we do have Bruce XJet come signing in. We're grateful for that. He's about in the same magnitude of time shifts. It's also important that there are the various countries and regions are in different stages of maturity. The UK has established regulations. Canada has established regulations. The European Union is working on it. They've not yet settled. So I don't know if India has firm regulations established, but where a country or a region is in terms of the maturity of the regulations, I think is helpful, in as much as many countries have in the past looked to the FAA for precedent. So that we know could be of value, depending on where their country or region is in establishing regulations.
So I think from that point, I think definitely getting, somebody, I think it's a great idea to get somebody from each country to kind of chime in on what's going on, what they're dealing with on a daily basis, what the hobby's like in their country, because I'm sure there are some countries where the hobby is thriving, and there's others where it's a fledgling hobby, so. And I think some of that's going to play a part in, what's going on in terms of regulations in those countries. So, I think from that standpoint, it's getting a hold of people in other countries to kind of help us out, help us understand, and beyond that, it's like, what are the legal requirements in each country? As an example, in the United States, a CBO is required to be a 501c3, and has a laundry list of things that we know of at this point that are required in order to kind of fulfill that role. What's that look like in other countries? So, and some of that is going to be, some of that will fall down to a language barrier too, and going through the regulation, the documents and whatnot, so that we can understand and they can understand what's really going on. And I mean, how do you feel like in terms of helping these other countries out, the FPV could assist? Like, what do you see as the best kind of standard for the U.S. based FPVFC to assist in other countries?
I think what could be really important for that is have someone over there to kind of to head up that region, and so that way it would all fall into just the three of you guys.
Absolutely.
So you have this kind of subdivision of it.
Okay. What else?
Well, I think we could obviously offer our website and Discord channel to be sort of the hub for the worldwide activities, a jumping off point for everybody, a common name.
Kind of create a central hub that everybody can kind of spawn out from. Okay. Let's see. Now, on a side note, let's talk about having someone in the region to kind of manage that. Could one person, let's say, and I'm going to use the European Union as an example, could one person in the European Union manage multiple countries within that, or should it be one chapter per country? What would that look like?
If it were very similar regulations to it, then I guess that would be feasible. But if they were extremely different, that wouldn't really make sense for it.
Okay.
Yeah, having a fair amount of experience working, releasing product and selling and marketing across the European Union, even if the offering or the regulations are they should be pan-European, yet I'd be willing to bet a fair amount of good wine or beer that it would be different per each country in the European Union. So either a region or country by country. And it would also probably coincide with your point, Josh, on the concentration or the popularity of the hobby.
Absolutely.
In the country.
Okay. Let's see. Now, and this is kind of at this point in the stage, it's kind of a moot point. But how would that? And Dave, you might have some insight into this. How would that be? How would something like an international FPVFC be funded? Would it be up to each individual chapter? You kind of see where I'm coming from there.
Yeah, because it would be a challenge in as much as we're a nonprofit, under the eyes of the IRS and the Commonwealth of Virginia, and so I'm not sure that it would be within our scope from a financial perspective to do too much that would be beneficial to folks outside of the United States. Simply from a technical get our 501(c)(3) status renewed on an annual basis.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought about that, and I'm like, what are the does being a 501(c)(3) prohibit or not just prohibit but inhibit our ability to assist other countries?
Yeah, it may. I've not I've worked in multinationals and international, and so I was thinking of a structure that would be more multinational, so it's separate entities with a loose confederation where we share core information, and that would work.
Right. Okay. So now let's see. think in order to get a better idea of what we can do, is obviously get more people involved first. I would agree with that. And social aspect can make a big impact. I would totally agree with that, Josh. So I just kind of want to get some feelers out on, what people, everybody's got friends in this hobby from other countries. So, I was just kind of wondering if people had stories or ideas of what was going on in those areas that we could, kind of pull from and see what get the temperature of what's going on. So, to answer your question, TB, yes, we do have a YouTube channel, and Dan can probably post that for me. Perfect. Right on cue. Let's see. How would you, in terms of finding people to kind of lead these, what would be your personal criteria for leaders in terms of different chapters of the FPVFC? Thoughts?
Are you talking about global, or are you talking about just local?
Global and local. I mean, let's break it down.
I think before we go international, in my opinion, it's better to get the groundworks here first done.
Okay.
And as that happens, more and more spread about, which the other countries will see it as to what the base that we're doing, or for the as well. In turn, so creating what's already been started.
Okay.
Essentially, from what I know.
So almost like a cut, like get it solidified here, and then kind of push it out as as much cut and paste as we possibly could, but obviously adapting to local regulations.
Yeah. Then, as the word is spread, say like from like India or something, someone will see it. They'll see the groundwork that's been already set. They will see what it stands for, and so on and so forth, and either adapt that to their idea, or they will try to join up with us to form a separate chapter off of it.
Gotcha.
And what could be pretty important for that also is to create kind of a foundation for someone wanting to do that. Is here's
kind of like a how-to kind of thing,
resources and how you're going to go about it, because it can be pretty daunting coming at it completely blindly.
Absolutely, which is what we've been doing. So, and I completely agree with that. That's a great point there. Kind of create a how-to guide
and compile everything that's been learned from the national level into the international level.
Okay. I like it. Good ideas, guys. Now, I know one of the topics Bruce has kind of put forth is, creating an event, a multinational, worldwide kind of drone event where, we're all flying safely, we're all, doing our thing, and creating no incidents and showcasing what the hobby is about. And it's stuff like that that kind of inspire change and kind of inspire people within the hobby, and inspire people to kind of cover that in the media. And what other ways are there to kind of inspire that change, either locally or globally?
That's actually something that I was thinking about earlier. Is just look at IO. IO was at AMA headquarters, and it's a pretty safe event. There haven't been many, super major injuries that I've heard reported there. And if that could become something that's associated with the FPVFC as well, then that kind of expands on it.
Okay.
Say, Dave, you got a good size yard, right?
There you go. 5 acres.
Oh boy, that would be interesting.
I know here in Virginia, Here we host Williamsburg IDD, which is a International Drone Day. I think that was back in April. And we had cops come out, we had companies come out, we had racing and freestyle, cops showing off drone technology and so on and so forth. That might be we could start up too. Is it something correlated? Is
Okay.
something
I kind of get where you're going from. Yep.
Razorline was breaking up for me. What I was able to hear was the idea of creating an event where we invite people, demonstrate, and with the one of the objectives being to underscore the safety factor of the drones we fly, as well as getting the word out. Did I capture that?
Yeah, I think that, and also, showcasing I think kind of what he was covering was he had like police out there that they were showing off their drone technology, what it was capable of. So showcasing the innovation of drones as well,
like
and what they're used for and whatnot. And I think that would be fantastic. I think
love the idea of making friends with the local municipalities as well.
Absolutely.
And what would be kind of important is not to just keep it to FPV, but also to photography and kind of hobby videography, because that's so many more people than just FPV pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And even though there's a divide there, it's kind of something that would have to be integrated together to grow it more.
Well, and I think that's I think that's the hard part sometimes, is that FPV, for the most part, it's a hobby. And, a lot of what the FPVFC is coming through is allowing, hobbyists to do what they do and enjoy the hobby with, as little or as, within reason regulations as possible. Basically, keeping the entry barrier low is how I kind of put it. But at the same time, a lot of the innovation and the good of what drones are capable of does come out of the commercial sector, from agriculture to energy to law enforcement to search and rescue, all these different things that people use drones for. Those are the things that kind of bring the good out of what the hobbyists are doing.
Well, and that could be another thing. Go ahead.
And the commercial folks are interested in terms of, so do you guys have any pilots that are any good? Might be interested in hiring them. And that's
Exactly.
So we are not trying to create a bright red line to divide between recreational and commercial. A lot of the work we're doing blends the two, and I think that's a good, healthy continuation. I think that the comment you made earlier that there are a lot of people flying DJI, and maybe they're doing it for recreation, maybe they're doing it for 107 purposes, but either way, that's great. And we're trying to make sure that we're talking to both groups.
And especially if we could, at said event that was talked about earlier, if we could kind of demo some of those instances where it's something that's very useful to have as UAVs, where search and rescue or whatever else, then that would solidify other.
Right. Interestingly, the FAA has not come out with anything since June on this, but they planned a mid-October drone safety week, and they want this to be a public and private collaboration, meaning FAA with anyone who they can work with, and so commercial, and as well as a big emphasis on recreational. So the idea was to identify different days for different industries, and the weekend was set aside for recreational. So like I say, I haven't seen much on this, but this is yet another activity we would very much like to participate in.
Absolutely. All right, so let's see. What else would help inspire change on a local level? Inspire people to the mission of the FPVFC. I think Dave and Mr. Bardwell had an excellent interview, and I think a lot of what we're trying to do came across. Stuff like that can help draw more people into the community and kind of help solidify the community in terms of being together under one roof.
What could be helpful is to, and I guess it's kind of conflicting against each other, but get local multi-GP chapters to, I guess, at least start mentioning the FPVFC, just so that it gets around more.
Okay, so trying to bring people in from a racing perspective. Okay.
And obviously, it would be great if we had a little elevator pitch for those multi-GP chapter presidents that we could give them.
Absolutely.
Because that's something that we're looking for in at least the chapter that I'm in is, how can we, like, getting venues for events is kind of hard because you can't just go anywhere and say, hey, I want to fly here with 24 people.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that would be challenging. I'm not by any means a racer, so I have no idea, the difficulties involved with that. But I can kind of guess that sometimes that does get hard. I know locally, here in Phoenix. Oh,
do you try to pull in an old fart? So one of the benefits and one of the things that we've consciously done in FPVFC is I'm 61, and so I'm an old fart, and it helps when you're walking into a municipal office, planning, zoning, local law enforcement, and you've got 4 decades of business experience, and you're a pillar of the community, instead of hi. I'm 20 years old and I would like to make a lot of noise in your town and create a commotion. That's no problem, right? So I'm obviously polarizing it and making a little bit of a joke, but I'm interested in, have you thought about, and how do you approach a situation like that? Because I think there's an advantage of working with FPVFC, who's a little more, we probably come off a little more staid because we're interested in following the rules. Is that something that you've done in terms of you're trying to find locations and you think, who we're gonna take with us is going to help us?
Yeah, and so like where we do events most of the time is a motocross track.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also, like, in September, I think we're doing a exhibition race at County Fair, and it's going to be a night race and LEDs on everything, and
that's awesome.
That's fantastic.
It's a spectator event for it. But that's also, so we did a qualifier there in June, and that was kind of the trade-off for it is, hey, you can do your qualifier here, and can you do an exhibition race for us during our fair?
That's a nice trade-off, because certainly you'll get some good press at the night race.
And I think that's key right there, and I think building those relationships where you're saying, hey, can I use your spot, and they're coming back to you and say, sure, if you do this, and then once the event goes well, then you've built that relationship and gaining the trust of those people in your community makes it a lot easier.
Well, and as far as I know, I think this is the 3rd year they're doing that exhibition race, and so there's a pretty solid foundation already with that, the host of the county fair there.
So now my question to you is, and this is a question I would pose to any organizer of any event, is what are you doing with the media?
Honestly, from what I've seen, we're not doing a whole lot because it's a local multi-GP chapter, and I'm not even a race organizer for them. I just go to the events and talk to the organizers and whatnot. But as far as I know, there's not a whole lot of interaction going on there.
And see, I think that right there is maybe a suggestion you could make to those organizers or anybody, and this goes for anybody who's, going to an event or organizing an event, is getting the media involved,
I
because
can
the
definitely
more
bring that up in our local group here.
I would, and the reason being is, plain and simple, by showcasing the good of what's going on, and the organization and the thrill of the event, and all that kind of stuff, and the safety that's happening, that creates a positive image for the hobby. And how many, I mean, they have all, or we have all seen all the negative press that we've all gotten, correct? I mean, that's not a
Yeah,
mystery.
definitely.
So,
And if
You
it
know what?
can be known as this giant kind of just spectator sport with lights and everything, that would definitely bring it up a notch.
You know
absolutely.
what's interesting, Josh, is I would just suspect that many multi-GP chapters may not be thinking of, here are the, here's Dan said it, an elevator pitch, but here are the couple of things when you call the local paper and you say you've got a racing event. These are the things that you want to drop on them. This is a great STEM opportunity for youth in the community. We're working with schools. We're looking to invite any young people, young men, young women into this group. And so to pitch the the upside of it, when you're talking to a reporter or you're talking to someone in the press, there are certainly community benefits that are going to get them interested.
And that's what I think is really nice about multi GP in particular is, the first time I went to a race with my local chapter, there are 3 or 4 chapters around me, and every time it's the same group of, about 60 of us that go to different races, and it's
Wow, that's
every
very
time
cool.
someone's rooting for you behind you and, giving you little
Mhm.
tips on clean up your line there, and it's just there's never this very stone cold competitiveness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's excellent. That's great.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, it's there's gonna be those types of events where, when you're racing, the competition comes in, but when you step out or you're observing somebody and they step off the line, that's when the tips start coming in. That's where the, hey, have you thought about this, or maybe try this, or that kind of thing. And I think honestly, for me, that's one of the main reasons I got into this hobby, is because people were so eager to help each other out. So I would challenge anybody doing any kind of event, whether it's us or whether it's multi GP, local race chapters, whatever the case may be, to definitely reach out to the media and have those conversations, and get something good out there. So go ahead.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say that I think we should really be more outlining the educational value of the unmanned aerial vehicle as a whole, because at least from what I've seen, I think a lot of people like organizing kind of like some kind of build thing at a community center or something like that online at some point, and I think at least on a local level that would be really interesting to have.
Absolutely.
Can you expand on that a little? I'm not, I don't think I'm completely following the train of thought.
Yeah, it's just on a local level. We as FPV pilots should actually try to get some official activities, such as that are more on the educational side of
Okay.
where like we could host maybe a demo build or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
see.
that makes sense.
I see where you're headed.
I know education was a really big part of what we had discussed way back when we were first starting, and I kind of feel like we've dropped the ball a little bit on education, or lost focus a little bit, and we don't have a person that's really driving the FPV Freedom Coalition's education area. So it would be great if we could find somebody who wanted to head that up and push that further. And I know we had talked about working on like curriculums and things like that to get out there, and that would be great if we could find someone to help work on that some more.
So how should anyone help work this thing? I might be interested.
Well, we can discuss that kind of stuff after we're done here at any time whenever you're free, man.
All right.
Let's see. I'm trying to grab a link to the server real quick. Hang on. Oh, for crying out loud.
Oh, I just saw Josh's question asking for someone to post a link to this Discord so I can copy and paste it. Is that, I assume, what you're doing?
Yeah.
All right. And,
sorry.
Thanks, Zoe, for stopping by.
All right, so Razorline, what about hosting safety guidance videos or make some videos in basic what to do to aid those new and coming into it? When I came into it, no one told me about local law or fields I could fly, or even the basic safety as far as what to do or not. Okay, that makes sense.
Really interesting because there's getting more and more videos out of, like there's a Rotor Riot series on getting into, the hardware of it, but what about the regulation side of it?
Yeah,
like hardware side, do's and don'ts of like building and stuff. There's tons of videos about that. But if you actually look into it, there's no real videos that show like how to look for laws about drones or like let's go. I go out and fly. Like for example, I'm in Norfolk. We have a no-fly zone. I still see people in that zone without using Lance and so on and so forth because either A, they don't want to do it, or B, it's
they don't know.
And exactly. And look at that show it, but it's like new for coming into it, don't do that, and one a whole bunch. So I think maybe some like how to use certain things or what to look out for or how to look up your local code to find out what you can and can't do with drones and so on and so forth. Because like for example here, my city, even though it's in a fly zone, has a designated parks that you can fly at.
Right.
But at the same time, that also conflicts with the new FCC law. But yet this law was passed in July of this year. So it's like, which one do you follow? Do you follow the local law or do you follow the national law and so on and so forth?
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like that idea. I think that's something we can definitely put together. Yeah. So, okay. Any other thoughts on any of the topics tonight? I've kind of exhausted what I had written down here, but we've got some good feedback. I like some of this stuff. So let me get that last thought down. Videos.
So while Josh is writing that down, I could segue slightly into a similar topic where we're not really as focused on it, but we've had a few people ask us questions how we overlap with the camera drone operators or the typical DJI crowd. Why would they want to be a member? Should they be a member? Should we focus on them at all or not? Curious to know what people's thoughts are on camera drone operators and how we could maybe not help them.
It's kind of inevitable. You can't really avoid it because it's such a large sector of the entire just autonomous flight, or not autonomous flight, but UAV flight in particular.
Well, the problem with that though is that with the new systems that are out now for DJI, they basically regulate everything automatically through the actual app. So like for example, I went up to Maryland a while back when I had my Phantom 3. I was literally 40 to 50 miles away from DC in Maryland, and they still wouldn't let me fly because I was in that no-fly zone. So in essence, as far as safety regulations go, their app kind of already handles that. But at the same time, I think Air Maps and I think another one will actually allow it to bypass it with Lance. I could be wrong.
You can reload a different set of a different code to talk to the transmitter on a DJI. Just drop a different flash of firmware onto the device and get around a lot of their geofencing. But I mean that's not what not what we would advocate.
Yeah.
And I do think there's benefit because I mean I've got a room full of drones, like probably a couple other guys on this call, and I have one DJI, and I don't touch it. It's boring. But if I were doing videography or if I were working with a 107 and making money at it, I think there would be some benefit because, boy, there are, if you're doing a business, there are shots that you cannot get any other way other than with an FPV quad like we fly. So I love the idea of crossover. I think the point is well made. You can't avoid it. I mean the numbers are huge. I love what DJI has done with their digital FPV. I think the design and how they've what components they have chosen to offer the market, I think, is brilliant, and I think they've got a good handle on how to move us into digital. And that could be a whole third rail topic. I know, but I do think it's prudent for us to try to embrace anyone who has who's using a DJI and try to see if they're interested in this type of UAS flight.
We especially can't push them away either, because then it puts a bad name on the entire group, and
yep,
if it's welcoming, then that's all the better.
Yeah, and I mean, to date, we've had a couple guys pose this question, and it's completely understandable because they're curious. But honestly, by advocating for FPV, that we're advocating for model aircraft as a whole. It's just that our general focus, is on FPV because that's where the focus has been lacking. For so long, at least since I've been in the hobby, and I'm sure since a lot of you have been in the hobby, and so that's been our focus, but that doesn't mean we exclude anybody. I would say, the more inclusive, the better, personally.
Well, I think this really should be divided into two groups because I think a lot of the DJI quad users are two different categories. The people who have something like a Part 107 and use professionally, and the other, which is people who are just people just flying, taking pictures of themselves for fun, and this kind of stuff. And I really think that we should be treating these two different groups as
distinct,
as distinct different groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't just call them all DJI only.
I agree. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. And certainly the I know the FAA is concerned about the recreational DJI user as a high odds of being the clueless and reckless flyer, and that's someone we really would like to help educate.
Well,
absolutely.
Well, what about the wing pilots then? Like the ones who do long distance flying for like wings and whatnot?
That's FPV. If you look at our logo, we're into everything FPV.
What I mean, like, is there like a? Are we gonna like? How do I put this? I know that we're mostly focused on the multi-rotor aspect of it, but I mean, like, how do I put this?
Here, I can help. Like, a lot of the regulations that we're working on, we're focused on, if you'll, another pun, on line of sight as well as beyond visual line of sight, and that that starts to be a better classification, and it pulls together. Oh, so you don't care if it's a quadcopter, a hexcopter, an octocopter, or a wing. You don't care. That's right. What we're trying to do is make sure that if I want to fly FPV, I can do it. Either in within a small area, or what do I have to do with my aircraft to fly beyond visual line of sight? Does that help characterize
Yeah,
what we're trying to do?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I fly quads and I fly wings. I know Dave flies fixed wing.
And
Dan,
rotary wing.
and yep, I don't. Yeah, no,
No,
I don't
big.
do helicopters.
Yeah, old style hilly RC hillies.
Yeah, you're on your own with that.
Yeah.
Those things scare the snot out of me. But I definitely have experience flying wings. Dave has experience with multiple aircraft. I think anything, and that's the thing is by advocating for one, you're advocating for all, because everything crosses over. I mean, and I would challenge anybody to really look at our safety guidelines and figure a point at which, even though they are geared towards FPV, that they don't apply to any other type of model aircraft flying. And if you find a spot, let me know and I'll fix it, because it literally is general safety rules. It just takes into account some of the aspects of FPV that we all know and love, and so and I will say that I fly wings just like I fly a quad. I fly proximity. I fly under the trees. I fly inches above the ground. And I, as well as taking to the skies. At decent altitudes. So I think all of that kind of crosses over. So does that kind of clarify some of that?
I just
Yeah,
want to add something.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, well, recently I moved into my new apartment in the Tempe area of Arizona, and I noticed that what they do, what a lot of these apartments do, is that they include a lot of coupons for different restaurants and stuff like that. I don't know if this is possible, but maybe we could try advocating our local shops to just hold out a slip for the FPV whenever somebody buys a drone or something like that.
It's something we've kind of discussed before, maybe not so much on a local level, but some of the major retailers that are out there, including, maybe a slip of our safety guidelines or something like that along with the packages. And that's been an idea in the past. I think the challenge right now is again, going back to kind of the beginning of our topic this evening, was to kind of grow and become a organization of influence that can reach out to these organizations and these companies that sell FPV gear and whatnot to help us out with that.
I don't know how many of you have a local shop near you, but if you do, print out some of our information, and sometimes if they have a bulletin board or something, post it up and make sure they know about us.
Absolutely. So anything else anybody has? We're kind of coming to the end of our hour, and I just kind of want to wrap things up. So, but if you've got any other questions or comments or things that we can do better or anything, now's your chance. And however, I won't limit it to just now. All right. Well, then I'll go ahead and wrap this up for this evening. I want to thank you all for participating. And I appreciate everything anybody can do to help spread the word and kind of help us grow as an organization and as kind of a force within the regulations here in the U.S. So thank you all.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
And have a great night.
Take care.